Rosemary, you were the first person to report on this alleged border deal. Tell us the story of how you came across this information directly from Senator Lankford's office.
So Senator Lankford has obviously been doing all this negotiating behind closed doors. He's the only Republican in the room. And then he goes out and he briefs other Republican senators on what they've agreed to. There is no text for this deal yet. So I am still very hopeful that this can all be erased. But I spoke with one of the senators he briefed and got that person's notes. And I have a whole lot more faith in that senator than I do in Senator Lankford. And so I went public with what was in those notes. And I have not had any pushback. Nobody has said directly to me, including Senator Lankford, this is not in there. This provision is not in there, or that provision is not in there. So, you know, obviously the graphic that Fox News did has gone all over the internet and nobody has pushed back. So I'm very confident in the provisions that those provisions were in fact agreed to by Senator Lankford and the Democrats in the room. And I hope that they come out. I sincerely do. I hope he walks away from this deal.
Yeah, and Senator Lankford hasn't denied it, but he sent out a little snarky, sarcastic tweet saying that a lie goes around the world before the truth has time to put its pants on, something of that sarcastic, snarky variation. But he hasn't flat out denied it. So, Rosemary, let's go through the specifics. What are the specifics? What of this border deal?
So again, I don't know all of the contours of this, and you know that would be interesting to see. But what I have been told, the two most egregious provisions are, number one, that illegal aliens will get immediate work permits as soon as they're released from custody. Right now, if you come into the country and say you want to claim asylum, you have to wait 180 days after you file your asylum application before you get a work permit. This erases that and says, basically on day one, you can apply for your work permit, you get your work permit, you get released into the country. And so this is essentially saying we're going to continue catch and release, and we're going to give you an immediate work permit. So that actually incentivizes more illegal immigration.
Of course it does. Of course.
Yeah. I mean, that's what they're coming for. The other truly egregious provision is this idea of they're creating a new expulsion authority, and it only kicks in if the 7-day average of encounters at the border is 5,000 per day. So it's okay if 4,999 illegal aliens come across that border every day, 365 days a year. But if the 7-day average goes over 5,000 per day, then an expulsion authority kicks in so that we can basically expel illegal aliens, which we should be able to do under current law anyway. It's just insane. It's like, it's, you know, the states like California that are saying it's okay if you shoplift under $1,000 or whatever it is.
Yes.
You're essentially legalizing that limit. You're saying it's fine to shoplift less than that. We're doing the same thing with this plan with illegal immigration, and it's absurd. If you add up 5,000 times 365, it's 1.8 million, over 1.8 million.
And maybe I'm reading too much into this. This was my initial reaction, though, is that if they acknowledge they can get it down to 5,000, then they acknowledge that they can cut it in half. So
of course.
They're telling you we have complete control of the border, is what they're telling you. We just don't want to do it, and we're not going to go down to 0 or 1,000. We'll just have the invasion kind of move along at 5,000 a day while getting mass amnesty for everybody.
Well, and if you think about this, all someone like Alejandro Mayorkas, the Secretary of DHS, would have to do is say, hey, Mexico, could you just slow it down for a day or two? We don't want that 7-day average to get over 5,000.
Exactly.
So just slow it down a little bit for a day or two. But the other thing is, remember, President Trump, there was a illegal immigration surge under President Trump, and because he was determined to do it, he fixed it. He got it done under existing laws. He set up the Remain in Mexico policy. He had agreements, asylum agreements with Central American and nations and Mexico. He got it done. He broke that surge, and we had the most secure border we have had in decades when President Trump left office and President Biden came in. So this can all be done without any new laws. And yet here is Senator Langford negotiating with Democrats, which never goes well on immigration. And we're leading toward the same path that we always end up in.
Every time. So additionally, I want to reiterate this though. Are deportations part of this deal at all?
There is, apparently they are doing something to make expedited removal easier. I don't know the details on that. So, there is something there. And, I've been told that they are also changing the credible fear standard for asylum applicants. Again, I don't know the details, but you know what? If these two egregious provisions are in there, none of the rest of it matters, because you're incentivizing illegal immigration and setting the baseline at 4,999 per day.
Can you help me understand the psychology of Senator Langford? I don't know him that well. I'm immensely disappointed. The way that we've articulated on the show is that Mitch McConnell selected a red state senator because they think that they're immune to any sort of political check and balance. He's 6 years out from an election, so his term goes out till January 2029 because they think voters are stupid and they forget. So that's why he was selected. But he calls himself a Christian. He talks all about biblical values. Can you just add some context in the psychology of why he's doing something so wicked?
I am not a psychologist. I do not know Senator Langford. I have been watching him. I will say he has actually come a long way from his days in the House on immigration. He sounded a whole lot more lenient on immigration, on illegal immigration in particular, when he was in the House. He's taken several trips to the border, and I think that has opened his eyes to some degree. But here's the problem, and this happens every few years in the Senate. It's always in the Senate, it seems. Some member of Congress, a Republican, gets in their mind that they're smarter than everyone else and they know the solution. And all it will take is for them to sit down with the Democrats and talk about it, and they can come up with a compromise that will work. It never happens. There are always, immigration is such a complicated issue. I've been doing this for 30 years now, and there is still more to learn every day. But they don't see the unintended consequences of the things that they're agreeing to. And I'll tell you, the Democrats do see them. The Democrats and Democratic staffers run circles around Republicans when it comes to setting out immigration law, because the Democratic staffers usually come from places like ALA and other law groups that have been doing this for years. So it's just it's a bad thing. I can't. I think he's got himself into a position where it's hard for him to back out, but he needs to back out. He just needs to walk away. And that's the other thing. If you can't walk away from a negotiation, you've already lost.
No, it's a hostage situation then. It's not a negotiation. You're being held hostage by Chuck U. Schumer. We're going to put the phone number for Senator Langford here. Rosemary, you are the immigration expert. I totally agree. It's a very technically complicated issue. However, I will add, it's morally not that complicated when you have mass migration. I know you'll agree with that. The big picture, morals, super simple. The technical H-1B, work visas, the tech thing of it, there's a lot there that goes over even my head at times. But from the big moral argument, why is it that Senate Republicans hate their voters so much?
So this is the thing. Every Republican, every politician has two voices coming at them. The voice of their constituents, the voters, who are generally middle class or lower class, hardworking Americans who are trying to put food on the table, and then the voices of the donor class. And the donor class really, really, really wants their cheap labor and their cheap nannies and their cheap landscapers. And the donor class is obviously giving money. So there's a competing interest there. But the fact is that all of these millions of illegal aliens who are coming across the border and all of the millions more who would come across under Senator Langford's plan, they're not going to be hurting the elites. They're going to be hurting average working Americans. They're going to be increasing housing prices because there's going to be more competition. They're going to be increasing, competition for all sorts of resources. We've already seen kids kicked out of schools to house illegal aliens. It's insane. And it's all targeted at poor Americans and particularly minorities. Those are the people who are going to suffer.